I haven't slept in 3 days. The doctors say it's PTSD, ghosts from my years on the force mixed with exhaustion. But they don't understand. They can't. What happened during my night shift at the Biltmore Hotel wasn't a breakdown. It was real. All of it. I need to write this now, while my hands are steady, while my mind is still clear. Maybe it will help someone else survive, though I pray no one ever has to. Before we dive into the story, tell me from which country you're listening and what time it is there right now. I'm Marcus Solberg, ex-cop, 15 years on the force before everything fell apart. Corruption creeps in quietly. First, small compromises, looking away when your partner pockets gratitude from a shopkeeper. Then, silence when evidence vanishes. I thought I was doing the right thing, gathering proof of something bigger: money laundering, evidence tampering, organized crime reaching the chief's office. I was ready to expose it all. I haven't slept in 3 days. The doctors say it's PTSD, ghosts from my years on the force mixed with exhaustion, but they don't understand. They can't. What happened during my night shift at the Biltmore Hotel wasn't a breakdown. It was real, all of it. I need to write this now, while my hands are steady, while my mind is still clear. Maybe it will help someone else survive, though I pray no one ever has to. I'm Marcus Solberg, ex-cop, 15 years on the force before everything fell apart. Corruption creeps in quietly. First, small compromises, looking away when your partner pockets gratitude from a shopkeeper. Then, silence when evidence vanishes. I thought I was doing the right thing, gathering proof of something bigger: money laundering, evidence tampering, organized crime reaching the chief's office. I was ready to expose it all. Instead, they buried me. My own team turned. Suddenly, I was the rat, the dirty cop, and they made sure the world believed it. They planted evidence in my locker, doctored my body cam footage, destroyed every recording proving my innocence. Forced resignation followed. Then came divorce papers from Helena. 20 years of marriage ended with a slammed door. She said she couldn't bear the shame, couldn't face our friends. Now I rot in a mold-stinking apartment in Oslo. Thin walls carry my neighbors' nightly arguments, curses mixing with the drone of my old police scanner. I keep it on out of habit, listening to calls from streets I once patrolled. Sometimes I check the shadows, convinced someone, or something, is watching. Paranoia? Maybe. But after the Biltmore, I'm not so sure. Yesterday began like any other. Noon wake-up, head pounding from cheap whiskey. Sunlight stabbed through cracked blinds, lighting empty bottles on the sill like stained glass. Bills piled high enough to cast shadows. Third cigarette of the day. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Usually I'd ignore it. This time, I didn't. Something made me answer. Desperation, maybe. The voice was thin, reedy, like wind through dead leaves. It reminded me of a case once, a corpse weeks old, skin tearing on concrete. Mr. Marcus Solberg, it rasped. This is Mr. Whitford of the Biltmore Hotel. We have an immediate opening for a night security position. Your background makes you ideal. I almost laughed. My background was why no one would hire me. But he continued, words slithering through the receiver. 3,000 kroner for one night. I froze. Impossible. Unusual situations, he added. Someone who knows when to follow protocol, when to trust instinct. Your real record suggests you're perfect. My real record, the one buried with my career. I should have asked questions. I didn't. When rent's due and eviction looms, even the strangest offer feels like salvation. By 10 p.m., I was driving through the chill toward the Biltmore. Its silhouette loomed like a gravestone against the sky. The Biltmore stood like a tombstone, its Art Deco beauty faded to rot. Overgrown lawn, no trespassing signs with blackened edges. The Miami heat had broken, replaced by an unnatural chill. The oak doors bore carved patterns that shifted when I blinked. They opened silently at my touch. The lobby struck me like a blow, air stale with old books and something worse. Dust swirled in unnatural currents. The marble staircase dominated, steps worn smooth. Chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls, their glow swallowed by shadows. A massive mirror loomed over reception. My reflection lagged, just barely. Then a voice. Mr. Solberg, I spun, reaching for a gun I no longer carried. Mr. Whitford stood there, tall, gaunt, skin pale as frost, suit outdated and immaculate. His pocket watch chain moved strangely, like dragging through water. "Your credentials impress," he said, handing me a wax-sealed envelope. "These rules are absolute. Follow them, and you might see morning." The envelope felt ancient, paper brittle, red wax like fresh blood. Inside, a yellowed sheet, typewritten, ink the color of dried blood. 10 rules. Acknowledge your reflection when it greets you. Room 303 remains sealed. Ignore knocks between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. Use only stairs after midnight. When lights flicker thrice, hide. Always keep a candle burning in the lobby. Do not speak to those who speak to you. Check the basement every hour. If the clock stops, reset immediately. If the clock shows an impossible time, leave before it arrives. At sunrise, leave, never look back. I read them twice, my pulse pounding. Each rule hinted at horrors without naming them. A sound broke my thoughts, heels clicking above. I looked up. A woman in a dark blue dress stood on the stairs, oddly out of focus. "Excuse me," she called softly. "Could you help me find my room?" Rule 7 thundered in my mind. Do not speak. I kept my gaze on the stairs, deliberately avoiding her face. "The numbers, they're different here," she continued, voice hollow, like sound from the bottom of a well. "They change when I look away, and the halls, they're longer than they should be, so much longer." My hands busied themselves with the front desk ledger, pretending to write. Click, click, click. The heels descended faster, sharper, each impact louder until it no longer sounded like shoes on marble but bone on stone. When the sound reached the bottom step, I forced myself to glance up. She was gone. But in the mirror behind the desk, something moved. A figure in a blue dress, faceless, watching. My hand shook as I checked my phone. 10:47 p.m. The night had barely begun. The next hour blurred into routine that didn't feel routine. Patrols, locked doors, notes scribbled like charms against the creeping wrongness. The security office was a cramped room behind the desk, filled with outdated CCTV monitors. Most feeds worked, grainy black and white views of empty halls, except the basement camera. That feed pulsed like a heartbeat. I focused on tasks, counting exits, memorizing stairwells, anything to stay anchored. The master key ring Whitford had left felt wrong in my palm, each key etched with strange symbols instead of numbers. When tested in locks, they whispered. Not a sound, an impression, secrets brushing my ears, too soft to grasp. By 11:30, I was on the 3rd floor. That's when I saw it. The hallway stretched unnaturally long, its faded red carpet swallowing light. I passed a massive mirror. My reflection had stopped. I froze, heart pounding. In the glass, I stood motionless, head tilted, smiling. Not my smile, something colder, older. Slowly, the reflection raised its hand in greeting. Rule 1 burned in my mind. I swallowed hard. "Good evening." Its smile widened, revealing too many teeth. It nodded, then moved again, in sync, but wrong. Always a fraction ahead, leading, not following. I hurried away, refusing to glance back. Years on the force had shown me brutal crimes, broken bodies, but nothing prepared me for the quiet horror of watching myself become something else. The night pressed colder around me. Midnight. Drawn back to the 3rd floor by a sound, half hum, half whisper. The carpet pattern writhed when I wasn't looking directly, shapes twisting like liquid. Then I saw the door. Room 303, different, older, strange carvings in the wood, tarnished brass numbers drinking in the light. A thin line of liquid seeped from beneath. I stepped closer, stopped. Rule 2, room 303 remains sealed. But instinct screamed, what if someone was inside? What if this was a trick? A sound came, soft weeping. Then it deepened into laughter, not human laughter. The smell hit me. Copper, rot, something ancient. Something heavy dragged across the floor inside, moving closer. The handle began to turn. I ran. I stumbled into the lobby, chest heaving. The clock read 12:17 a.m. Systems check. Lights, locks, cameras, all normal. Normal meant nothing here. The basement feed drew my eyes again. The image was sharper now. Rows of dusty shelves, forgotten furniture under sheets. One sheet shifted, then a shadow moved, humanoid, too quick to track. Rule 8. Check basement hourly. Record all movements. My hand shook as I logged it. The paper absorbed the ink like living skin. A sound drew me up. Chandelier crystals chiming, though no breeze stirred. Lights flickered once, twice. Rule 5. The third flicker plunged the lobby into darkness. Something slid across the marble, wet and massive. I dove behind the desk, heart in my throat as the sound drew closer. I fumbled for the lighter, its metallic click deafening in the dark. A soft exhale brushed my ear, icy, damp, impossibly close. The flame finally sparked, casting trembling light across the lobby. Empty. Almost. The furniture had changed position, subtly angled toward me like an audience. The lobby candle's flame guttered violently. I steadied it with my hand, praying it would hold. When the lights returned, the room was pristine again. I checked the clock, 2:44 a.m. Time dragged like a wounded animal. A memory surfaced, my last year on the force, when I'd buried evidence to protect a colleague. A bad decision for the greater good. I shoved it away. This was no time for ghosts from outside these walls. Except here, ghosts didn't stay outside. The second floor felt colder, air thick like syrup. I patrolled mechanically, checking each room. Room 217's door stood ajar. I didn't open it. I couldn't. The smell of damp earth leaked from the crack, and a faint scratching echoed within. At the end of the hall stood a woman in a 1920s gown, head bowed. She raised it slowly, revealing empty white eyes. "Would you like to dance?" she asked, voice layered with distant echoes. Rule 7 screamed in my head. I kept silent, walking past with deliberate calm. The rustle of her dress followed like leaves dragged by wind. When I turned the corner, the hallway behind me was empty, except for a single footprint in black liquid where she'd stood. Back in the security office, I pored over the basement feed. Now the furniture was arranged in a circle. In the center stood a figure in a police uniform, my old uniform. It faced away, unmoving. Then its head began to turn. Farther, farther. Before its face came into view, I killed the monitor, heart hammering. I checked my watch, 1:13 a.m. The lobby clock read 13:13. My vision blurred at the impossible number. Something in the corner of the room shifted. I turned quickly. Empty chair, empty air. But the smell of copper lingered. The knocking began again, 3 slow pounds on the lobby door. I approached cautiously. Through the cracks, I glimpsed shifting shapes outside, too many limbs bending impossibly. The wood began to splinter. I backed away, colliding with something solid. I turned, face to face with the 1920s woman again. Her mouth stretched too wide, rows of needle-like teeth glistening. "The ballroom is always open to new guests," she whispered. Her voice came from beneath the hotel itself. Rule 7. I kept my eyes down and walked away. Her laughter followed, multiplying until it filled every corner. 2:07 a.m. The walls pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Whispers slithered through the air, too many voices overlapping in languages I didn't know. One voice stood out, my father's. "Son, you've always run from what you've done." I gritted my teeth. Another voice, my old partner, Klaus. "You left me to rot when they came for us." I shouted to drown them out, but the sound died in the air. The lobby candle flickered violently. I lunged forward, relighting it just as the shadows began to crawl across the marble like liquid. The whispers ceased instantly, but in the brief darkness, I'd felt it. A cold, massive presence inches away, watching, waiting. 2:32 a.m. I forced myself to stay moving, to not let the hotel lull me into stillness. The grand staircase loomed ahead. Halfway up, I heard the wet sliding sound again, closer now, just beyond sight. I froze, then deliberately climbed the rest of the steps, not looking back. The second-floor hallway stretched impossibly long, lined with doors that hadn't been there before. Every doorknob rattled in unison. A single door stood still, room 303. Its brass number gleamed freshly polished. I reached for the knob, hesitated, then pulled back. The handle turned on its own. I walked away fast, heart pounding like a drum. When I glanced back at the hallway, it was normal again, except for one whisper, clear as glass. "You're almost ready." I returned to the office. The basement feed now showed nothing, no circle, no figure. I almost sighed with relief, until the screen went black, replaced by white text. "We know what you did, Leon." I staggered back. No one alive knew. Not about the evidence I'd destroyed or the witness I'd silenced. The screen flickered, showing images of those nights, me on grainy footage, burning files, handing off cash. The door behind me creaked open. I spun, nothing there. When I turned back, the monitor was blank again. The candle in the office sputtered. I relit it with shaking hands. The clock read 3:13 a.m. The lobby clock still showed 13:13. I rubbed my eyes, trying to steady my breath. A low hum filled the building, vibrating in my bones. Down the hall, the 1920s woman drifted past without looking at me. Then I saw him. Klaus, my old partner, walking stiffly down the stairs. "Hey, Leon," he said, voice wet, ruined. "Remember what you said at my funeral? How you wished you could have saved me?" He stopped, head tilting at a sickening angle. "Well, here's your chance." I shut my eyes, whispered Rule 7 to myself, and kept walking. His gurgling laugh followed, echoing long after he was gone. 3:45 a.m. I checked the front doors. Locked tight, but the glass was fogged from outside, as if something enormous breathed against it. I wiped it with my sleeve. For a moment I saw my own reflection staring back. Then it smiled. I didn't. The candle flame beside me nearly died. I lit another, creating a ring of light on the lobby floor. The shadows recoiled, but I swore I saw faces in them. Victims, suspects, all accusing me. My mother's voice drifted through the air, warm but wrong. "You've always been weak, Leon. Always hiding from what you are." The ring of light trembled as something pressed against it from outside. Invisible, yet immense. 4:10 a.m. The air tasted like iron and rot. The lobby's marble tiles darkened, patterns forming that almost spelled words before bleeding away. The knocking on room 300's door began again, louder, more frantic. I ignored it. A mirror above the reception desk rippled like water. Inside, I saw not the lobby but another place entirely. Damp walls, chains, and a thing lurking in the dark. Then the mirror cracked loudly. The wet sliding sound approached fast. I lit another candle, holding it high. The sound stopped instantly. But when I turned to the reception desk, my reflection remained in the mirror a moment longer than me, and it was smiling again. 4:30 a.m. The whispers changed tone. No longer threats, now they promised escape. They spoke of evidence to clear my name, of redemption, of freedom. All I had to do was look back when I left. I tried to block them out, humming tunelessly like I did on long stakeouts. It barely helped. The hotel seemed to pulse with each breath I took, as if it were alive and waiting. I glanced at the basement feed once more. The furniture in the storage room was arranged into a perfect circle again. Inside stood a figure in a police uniform. My uniform. Its head began to turn, far beyond human limits. I slammed the monitor off, my heart hammering. "Almost ready," a voice whispered in my ear. I was alone, or supposed to be. 5:00 a.m. The hotel woke fully. The walls themselves shifted subtly, like muscles beneath skin. Every clock displayed a different, impossible time. Mirrors showed realities I couldn't comprehend. Lavish galas with guests made of smoke, hallways choked with bodies, oceans of black water swallowing the lobby whole. I focused on the candle flame in front of me. It was my only anchor. Then she appeared. Isabel, in the blue dress she wore the day she left me. Her movements were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet controlled by cruel strings. "Leon," she said softly, "I understand now. We can start again." I kept my gaze fixed on the flame. She laughed, a sound like glass breaking, and was gone. 5:15 a.m. The knocking from room 300 grew louder, shaking the very walls. Through the cracks in the marble, dark liquid seeped, forming strange, fleeting sigils. I smelled sweetness under the rot, like rotting fruit. My old cases haunted me. Faces of victims, witnesses, and the guilty blurred together in the shadows. Each candle I lit burned lower faster, as if the darkness was feeding on them. I added more candles, forming a larger circle of light. Figures appeared at the edges. My father, pale in his hospital gown. Suspects I'd arrested. Klaus, grinning with his broken neck. They didn't cross the light, but they spoke in unison. "You can't run from yourself." 5:35 a.m. I whispered to myself over and over, "Dawn brings escape, if you don't look back." The voices outside my circle of light changed again, now begging, sobbing, promising love and peace. The candle flames shuddered as if something vast pressed down on them. The hotel groaned like a living creature. A door appeared in the lobby, room 300's door, leaking black liquid. The woman in the 1920s dress emerged from it, gliding soundlessly. She stood at the edge of the circle, eyes blank, teeth needle-sharp. "Would you like to dance?" she asked. I stayed silent, eyes fixed forward. She smiled and sank slowly into the marble floor. 5:50 a.m. Real light, pale, cold, began to bleed through the windows. The figures became frantic, voices rising into a frenzy. Sarah Isabel screamed my name. My father called me a coward. Klaus laughed, gurgling. "Running again, partner?" The walls swelled and split, black veins pulsing beneath. Something enormous moved beyond the hotel's boundaries, shaking the building itself. I stood, legs trembling, and walked toward the front doors. The voices grew violent, hateful, desperate. Cold air licked at my neck. Heavy, wet footsteps followed. I reached the doors. Rule 10 thundered in my mind. Dawn brings escape, if you don't look back. I pushed them open and stepped into the morning. The morning air was damp and heavy with salt from the nearby ocean. I walked across the cracked pavement, each step feeling unreal, like I was treading water. Behind me, the hotel groaned, an ancient, wounded thing. I didn't look back. Birdsong began faintly, the first real sound of life I'd heard in hours. The sun was low, weak, but rising. My car sat where I'd left it, coated in a thin layer of grime that hadn't been there before. I reached for the handle. Cold fingers brushed mine. I froze. There was no one there. Inside, the seats smelled faintly of rot, though they looked perfectly clean. I started the engine with shaking hands. The radio crackled on by itself, a voice whispering in that wet, gurgling tone. "You didn't really leave." I slammed it off and drove. I didn't go home. Didn't dare. Instead, I parked at a 24-hour diner off the highway. Neon lights buzzed overhead as I sat in a corner booth, coffee untouched. A waitress asked if I was okay. I told her I'd just finished a long shift. She gave me a look I couldn't read and walked away. I pulled out my phone. No missed calls. No messages. But in my photo gallery, dozens of pictures of the hotel lobby. Taken from impossible angles, some from corners that shouldn't exist. In each one I was there, always in the background, always smiling. I drove to a police contact I trusted, Inspector Matthias Brenner. He owed me favors, enough to take my claims seriously. I told him everything, leaving out only the things that would sound insane. He listened, expression neutral, then asked to see the photos. When I handed him the phone, the images were gone. The gallery was empty. Matthias studied me for a long moment. "Get some sleep," he said finally. I heard what he didn't say. You're losing it." As I left, I caught my reflection in his office window. It smiled at me. I didn't smile back. Days passed. I stayed in motels, never the same one twice. Every night I checked the mirrors, the corners of rooms, the shadows. Sometimes I woke to find the furniture in new positions. Sometimes I heard wet sliding in the walls. Once I found a brass key on my nightstand. Its head was carved with symbols. I threw it into a river. The next morning it was back. I can't escape it. The Biltmore doesn't end when you leave. Now I write this. It's been 3 weeks. I haven't slept more than an hour at a time. When I close my eyes, I see the lobby. Rearranged furniture, dripping chandeliers, faces without features. I hear Isabel's laugh. I hear my father's disappointment. I hear Klaus's gurgling chuckle. I know the rules still apply. The hotel marked me. I'll carry it until I die. If you find this, remember, do not break the rules. Do not trust what you see. Do not look back. Dawn brings escape. If you're lucky,